Wake up from a daydream, feel your neurons ignite. Levitate your body, thoughts and limbs reunite. So come on, come on, come on, rock a two-step, shake them bones. So come on, come on, come on, taste the rhythm on your tongue. Make it shine like gold, make it shine like gold. Make it shine like gold, make it shine like gold, gold. Get down from that high horse, ride this feeling with us. Wear it like a crown till sunshine fades into dusk. Come on, come on, come on, rock a two-step, shake them bones. So come on, come on, come on, taste the rhythm on your tongue. Make it shine like gold, make it shine like gold. Make it shine like gold, make it shine like gold, gold. I see the lights changing, I see the lights changing. I hear music playing, I hear it playing in my mind. Make it shine like gold, make it shine like gold. Make it shine like gold, make it shine like gold, gold. Make it shine like gold, make it shine like gold. Make it shine like gold, make it shine like gold. Make it shine like gold, make it shine like gold, gold. Make it shine like gold, make it shine like gold. Make it shine like gold, make it shine like gold. Make it shine like gold, make it shine like gold. Make it shine like gold, make it shine like gold. Make it sound like gold. Wake up from a daydream, feel your neurons ignite. Levitate your body, thoughts and limbs reunite.
Good morning and welcome to this event, Stay STEM, Say Women. Unfortunately, at times we have glitches, we have the wrong slide up on screen. No worries, we move on. This is an event that belongs to the great events of the 2020 edition of Job Orienta and the European Week of Vocational Training. As you've said, we wanted to open this event with two video clips telling us whom we are. In these two video clips, you've seen our words like change, dreams, innovation, which say whom we are, and words like future, to which the European Vocational Training Association is oriented, because training means acting change through awareness. And IPNET and EVTA strongly wanted this meeting, even though unfortunately this year round it's not possible to be in person. Our attitude, however, is and must always be that of looking at the glasses, the silver lining. And the chair of the European Commission, Ursula von der Leyen, said so in the speech of some days ago, in which she said and reminds that change is not overnight. It takes perseverance, so everything is possible. So thanks to our translation service and the technology available this year round, we've decided to be broader, beyond national borders. So allow me to remind our European friends that we have simultaneous interpreting into English. Quindi sotto c'è il link per la traduzione in lingua inglese dell'evento. Grazie. So, a warm welcome to all of you linked from Italy and Europe. And talking about Europe, I would like to immediately connect to Brussels with Giulia Meschino, EVTA, who supported us and bared with us in the organization of this event, who will share with me this virtual stage. Hi, Giulia. Hi, Silvia. Thank you. Good morning to all of you from Brussels. Like Silvia said a moment ago, I'm Giulia and I represent the European Vocational Training Association. It's a European network that for 25 years has represented professional training entities and talks to Europe and the main players of the industry. Thank you, Giulia. See you later for the panel. Back to us now and back to our event. Stay STEM, Say Women. This is the title we've chosen for today's meeting, but it's also a message we want to bring across to you and very strongly. So, why are we here today and why is it necessary to tackle this theme? Well, for sure, item 1 of the European Pillar for Social Rights, Education, Training, Permanent Learning, Gender Equality, Equal Opportunities. This is one source. Plus, in the Society of Knowledge, the STEM disciplines, so sciences, technology, engineering, and mathematics, play a key role. But there are few women, too few women who have access to STEM disciplines. So as a result, there are few workers in the related sectors. We should think of the fact that there are some STEM specializations where there's been a strong increase in the presence of women in training courses like biomedical technologies. However, with the same graduation, very few women feel top positions. So it's necessary to address this theme, this issue, including based upon data that we have, which are disappointing, like the data we presented in 2018 of women in science. You know, it's a UNESCO report according to which the women employed in STEM research account for less than 30% globally of the total people employed. So this data cannot be ignored, that's for sure. Finally, let's talk about facts. The education system, the vocational training system, always focused on the young and, young girls and adult women, but more often than not, the proposal made does not sufficiently consider STEM professions. And as a result, I mean, like mathematics or sciences, if they're not adequately considered, these disciplines underlie the professions of the future. So this creates a huge gap. Today we are here with all of you, whom I thank so warmly once again. We are here to receive new food for thought, insights, and guidance, because unfortunately we have so many myths to, defeat, like stereotypes and prejudices and biases. Full gender equality in this crucial sector, I mean, that of the STEM disciplines, is an ambitious goal, but it's equally primary important, and we believe in it. And so once again, we renew our commitment here today. Now, this is food for thought for you to think of, and prior to moving on to the round table, we can do some housekeeping, meaning I will give you some housekeeping information. So, during the event, we recommend you strongly to share with us your thoughts, comments, and questions. There's going to be time to take your questions. We'll get back to you to the extent possible. And if you're interested in our Job Orienta official window, you can see the documents that pushed us to organize the event, and there's a short bio of all of our speakers. So you can take a look at that if you want to. And last but not least, the most funny and fun part of the event, if you wish, well, we have to keep us apart for the pandemic, but we want you to stay close to us. So this is the Twitter challenge. If you don't have Twitter, you have 2 hours. Do it. Stay connected. Like I said, stay STEM, say women. This is the title. This is the take-home message for you to bring home. But today it's also a hashtag, and spread it as much as possible. So over to all of you. Tweet using the hashtag StaySTEM, say women, at the end of the event. We will retweet the most creative and incisive tweets, the most beautiful ones. So, without any further ado, let's dig into the heart of this event and let us meet our protagonists. We have a panel of women, great women. They need no long introduction. Starting from Maria Raffaella Caprioglio, Chair of Umana, ELENA DONAZZAN, Regional Veneto Councillor for Training, Education, Employment and Equal Opportunities, ELENA GRANATA, Vice President of the School of Civil Education and Professor at the Milano Politecnico, MANUELA General Direction Employment, Social Affairs and Inclusion, and also one last speaker who's not present, but who has given to us a message, a gift for us. So let's start immediately from our speakers. So, we're talking about STEM. So, the best way of talking about it is to start from numbers. I mean, a practical overview of this phenomenon. So, Professor Tanturri, Maria Letizia Tanturri, good morning, I can see you. You're an expert and teacher of statistical sciences at the Padua University. So, based upon an analysis of trends and data of the last few years, what is the picture, the snapshot of gender equality in the STEM area? Well, to start with, I can tell you that we're not doing so well. But prior to presenting to you the data, I'd like to give you a key, my key to read this data. Women in STEM professions are underrepresented. The same holds true for STEM courses. All data says so. But why? Isn't there a spark in little girls and young women for these subject matters or disciplines? So I want to show you, as a key for reading the situation, what I found in a bookshop while I was browsing the bookshop. And I want to show you, as soon as the slide is up on screen, it's stuck. Okay, here we are, there we are. Now we have the right slide. So I wanted to show you this little book that I found in the bookshop, and the subtitle was Little Words for Boys and Girls. And this is a strong conditioning, you know, for little girls, cake design, for little boys, robotics. Now then, passions and choices. I mean, how can they be born if since the beginning we say that little girls have to deal with magic and fashion? Instead, we tell little boys that they have to deal with naval or mechanical engineering, or for little girls, we talk about princesses or jewels, precious jewels. Instead, for little boys, we allow them to get to know sciences and technology. Just think that in Italy, little boys receive the first PC long before little girls. So, I mean, you see, that's the point. Before taking a look at the data, I want to show you this conditioning. So it's no surprise that still today, at the age of 13, when boys and girls have to choose the high school, there are still differences between girls and boys. Schools where there are more women, like classical humanities, languages, and human sciences. Instead, there are more boys for sciences, applied sciences, and sports and technology. So, let's start from this choice, which is a strong conditioning factor for the following choices. But I mean, it could be a difference of attitude and interest. Okay, but let us take a look at the data of the OCSE PISA survey done to evaluate the skills of 15-year-olds in the various disciplines. And here we see mathematical skills, and as a matter of fact, Italian students are in line with the OECD average, less well so for sciences. But impressively, there are gender inequalities. In particular, for mathematics, the average score for boys is 16 points higher than girls. And amongst other things, males do better than girls as regards medium to high scores, so they are more performing. But is it a destiny? I mean, this gender inequality. Now, take a look at the chart of countries in terms of genders in mathematical skills, and look at the upper part of this chart. You can see that there are countries where gender is in favor of girls, and they do better with maths in some countries. Unfortunately, instead in Italy, it's the other way around. We are a laggard. We have the broadest gender divide. We're not happy with this. It's very bad, too bad. You know, this is 3 times worse than the OECD average, and this is inequality, real inequality. So it's not destiny, because studies show that this is not due to biology, as neurosciences have proven, and amongst other things we've seen now, that it can be reduced in countries that have more focus on gender issues, so for the benefit of girls. But we've also seen that this divide can be reduced in the event that the mother of the student works. A working mom fills this gap, and this is important for the social and economic context we come from. And the same holds true if we compare boys and girls who, trust their maths skills. This as well is a factor that can fill the gap. So there is no self-confidence in girls. They don't believe they're good enough in these disciplines because, everything around them makes them believe that this is the case. And this is something that impacts their dreams as well. If we take, for example, the girls who, based upon the PISA survey, are the top performers for maths, only 1 in 8 of them dreams that at the age of 30 they will work in STEM professions. So, as you can see, also dreams are impacted, and adversely so, irrespectively of the results, because these are top performers. And for boys, this is 1 in 4. Not that high, but it's better, and we're talking about the top performers. Too bad once again. So, this in turn has an impact on the university. Which are the choices? Well, it is well known that unfortunately, most recent data, this is for last year, over 70% of engineering and scientific disciplines graduates are still males. However, this is in contrast with the fact that graduate females have better marks, and they are more regular in their courses, not just in the subject matters and disciplines in which there is a female predominance or in others, but also as regards STEM disciplines. So this certainly is an element we have to think of. Besides this, it's so hard, for this minority of females to perform in the STEM area. The few who do this realize that they don't really use the skills that they have earned when it comes to working. And this, for sure, is yet one more inequality, because 1 in 3 with a STEM graduation can find a job where these skills are enhanced. And instead, for males, 1 in 2, and it's even worse for high school diplomas in scientific subject matters. Hopefully, I've been able to tell you that it's not just a diversity of passions, but it's also as a result of biases, stereotypes, and inequalities, and we have to work hard on them. Thank you. Thank you, Professor. Absolutely. I agree. I believe that we all agree with your words. The reality you described is what we are seeing and living. This brings me to the next question. Now the question is for Maria Raffaella Caprioglio. Professor Caprioglio, good morning, Professor. Good morning, welcome. I'm not a professor. I've never been a professor. Doctor, I'm sorry. We've already heard a professor and her data is fantastic. Okay, doctor. Over to you. Faced with this situation, the one described by Professor Santurri, we are curious. We want to delve into the impact on the labor market. So that is why we ask you if it is well-rooted biases in society we're not aware of, or are there, according to you, more reasons that hamper access to women in terms of studies and careers with STEM disciplines? Like the professor said, she said something that I agree with. This is the basic problem. It's a cultural mindset problem. But this cultural problem results in the fact that we are not optimistic for the future because we have to be patient. We have to wait for more developments and experiences. We've heard, and that's interesting, that there's a huge difference in terms of choice depending upon whether mothers work. You know, until few years ago, there was no such opening for women in the labor market. As regards STEM jobs, based upon the data processed by the Confindustria department based upon Istat and Unioncamere data, it is clear that we need STEM professionals in the coming years. And for 2020-2022, it will be necessary to have 150 to 100,000 experts in STEM disciplines. I can tell you this much. This is a real need because we don't have enough people. There's a general trend in our country, at least in Italy, to study different subject matters other than STEM. So the labor market wants experts for chemistry, IT, and food processing, and STEM graduations, are much in need. So it's difficult to find these people. This is an issue. Even worse, women, because, they don't study STEM disciplines in schools. And once again, there are conditioning factors that prevent women from pursuing these careers. So it's up to us as mothers to be committed, to stay committed. I don't think we have to invite our children to make a choice or a different choice, not that, but it's about how we educate and grow and raise our children that make the difference. So once again, we need these professions. We don't have them right now. And when girls make these choices, they are top performers, by the way, at the university. Then when they have to find a job, they don't always use their skills. That's true, unfortunately. I mean, I'm talking about top performers, university graduates, but then when it comes to working, they use other skills, girls. And it's also about how your attitude works, because it's a cultural problem, once again. Maybe enterprises prefer men. Why? At times because of the context. I don't believe that enterprises are in bad faith or biased upfront because there's an opening towards females in the labor market. But at times, it's about context. People believe that in certain working hours, women are not fit, and so on and so forth, And I believe that, for example, those who work in Umana can be extremely useful to educate enterprises when making choices. We as a company, true, we have very few STEM graduates, but as an enterprise, we have many women employed. And they are all working women, and they will raise children who will be more available to make these fairer choices. But there is an issue, a major issue, i.e. today, The evaluation of soft skills is very important, and we as women have good soft skills and are more willing to use them and nurture them and fine-tune them. This can be a further way to facilitate entry in the labor market of STEM professionals. Over the years, this has been the case, this is improving, this is important. And as I said at the beginning, I believe it is very important to trust that it takes time. I mean, I don't watch the TV very often, but yesterday I passionately watched the fiction on the life of Rita Levi Montalcini, and I was so impressed when you know, she was middle-aged, she had already been awarded the Nobel Prize, and she talked to young lab researchers, women, and, you know, in the lab fridge, there were, you know, food items, and she said to them, "Why did you go shopping earlier?" And they said, "Because we are so busy, we go back home and we need to be ready." She said, "Are you married? Do you have children?" "Yes, and we're all separate from our husbands." And she said, as a reply, "It's not yet time to have it all. I mean, a good work-life balance." And, you know, this was last century, but not that long ago. And this is evidence that the society as a whole need to grow. Parents need to grow. Men need to grow in terms of mindset. We're not all lucky to have schoolmates or life partners who grow up with this mindset. We need to help. It's a social growth. And then, I mean, needless to say that women are so good as being top performers at home and at work, and I'm very optimistic. We do have jobs. We want to have women in these jobs. Enterprises want them. We want them. We at Umana, so we have to work all together because we need to change this mindset. Thank you. Thank you so much, Doctor. And I thank you for touching on many aspects that more often than not we don't consider when we dig into this theme. And I believe that many of us, like me, watched this fiction, and we all agree. We all agree with you. And we what you said, like you said a moment ago, you know, these conditioning factors are hard to die, and there are many stereotypes to be eliminated. So this leads me to the next question. Dr. Elena Granata, there you are. Good morning and welcome. So with you, I'll go straight to the point. I want to understand, based upon what we've said a moment ago, what could be, according to you, the winning models to pull down these barriers, these walls, and thus to promote and encourage the involvement and engagement of girls and women. Thank you for this opportunity. Thank you for having me here. I studied at the Politecnico University of Milan, where I continue to work in a male-oriented world that has embraced more and more women as students and scholars. However, this presence of women at the Milan Polytechnic has stopped at PhD and then researchers and associate professors and so on and so forth, and we never get to the top. So, though I come from this best practice with best policies to promote the presence of women and to attract girls, it's a long way to go. And we have to work hard to do this. I'm always concerned, you know, when I hear say how good girls are at school. I mean, let's face it, some years ago I talked to the high school teacher of my student, a boy. He had difficulties, and she said, he's slow, distracted, wastes his time. and girls are so good instead. But then, there comes a time when boys are better at the university. And in this interview, I understood that there were two strong stereotypes in this teacher. First, boys are slow, and that's an issue. So girls have to rush and do everything, be quick, be fast, and, give back to the teacher what the teacher expects. And they're so good at doing that. They're better and better in being the perfect copy of what the teacher expects from them. No way for boys. They cannot afford being slow, so they find it hard. But then there comes a time in life when their creativity and their not complying with rules is rewarded at the university and at work, where that anarchy, their being slow, becomes their added value. And so I'd like to focus your attention on what's the danger of remembering how good girls are. Because if we say so that they are good at schools, it's a trap. Because it means that they have to stick to the rules. They never make an exception to the rules. What talent, what intelligence is rewarded when girls are at school? Not anarchy, not creativity, not the fact that they can be rebels or that they can be provocative. All of these traits will be the winning weapons of males at work. So we have a lot to do. We have to work hard. It's a long way to go. If at school these stereotypes are so strong, I'm more afraid of punishments and rewards because only a certain type of female student is rewarded. The models for males are completely different compared to those offered to males. But which women do little girls come across in their life? Mothers, teachers, many female teachers. So we should wonder why, when we talk about STEM for girls, we only talk about a women to women discussion. Why is it that when we talk about violence against women, we only talk among women? And why is it that, care is only within the remit of females? So, along their way, girls don't meet talented and significant women in the field of technology, science, and intelligence. So they find generous, caring, loving women, but not women who are top performers for their intellect. So the cultural process should certainly fight to eliminate these stereotypes, most especially when it comes to teachers. And we should facilitate, access to important stories. We talked about Rita Levi Montalcini. She said, it's not yet time to have it all. Here we are. We need women like us. I mean, like the women you're seeing today up on screen on this virtual stage. And we have to tell girls that we want it all. We can want it all. We can have it all. It's not impossible for us to make it. We can do it. Because the perception that we have is, I want, but I cannot. The expectations of society are so strong and so structured a priori that little girls understand since the beginning that they cannot want it all. And so if they cannot want it all, they have to make a choice. They always have to decide, like have a job that enables women to also have a family. This is a form of blackmail. Too bad. We know since the beginning that it's not possible to do both things. I mean, family and work. Or you have to choose between private life, passionate life, or perform well at work. So we, when we are little girls, always find women, adult women, who have had to give up one portion of their life. I remember when at the University of Milan, I was pregnant first time, second time, and third time. When I went there and I was pregnant, I joked with my colleagues because I was always pregnant. And I said, no, it's the one before, it's the same child as before. Like, I was ashamed that I'm a mom of three. And I understood from the eyes of my colleagues who were, intellectuals, they were advanced, but I understood that it was something I had to be ashamed of or conceal somehow. So we have to be brave, be courageous, and tell little girls, it's doable, you can do it, but you have to be courageous. You have to say it is possible. You have to say, yes, I can. This is a reassuring message. It's not logical, it's not rhetorical, but no one says so. It's not mainstreamed. Many women say it's difficult, it's hard, we can't make it, we can't do it. And quite obviously, this message comes across to little girls. But we have to break this chain, this destiny. It's not a destiny, it's not unavoidable. We're not doomed to do this. Thank you for your words. I smiled when you said how good the girls are at school. We've all heard this at least once in our life. And unfortunately, and I say unfortunately, you're perfectly right, the lack of models has an adverse impact on females. And I would like to add also that more often than not, we do have models, but because of the Matilda effect, they don't work. These models are not recognized. Women's merits are not recognized. So we cannot exploit these models. Thank you so much for your wonderful words. Now, I'd like to give the floor to Giulia in Brussels. So we are going abroad, so to speak, and with her, I'd like to have a more European point of view. Over to you, Giulia. Thank you, Silvia. Now, I have a question for our international guest, Dr. GELENG. The European Union has shown specific interest on STEM. In April this year, the FEM Commission for the Rights of Women and Gender Equality of the European Parliament published a specific study on the involvement of women in STEM studies and jobs. Aside from the definition of the situation in Europe, which are the policies and actions that the European Union, and in particular the Commission, are working on to promote gender equality in education, training, and most especially as regards STEM disciplines? Thank you and good morning. Like you said, gender equality has always been present and declared by the European Union since 1957, like the previous speaker said, and as we can see in the real world, it continues to be a goal, a target to be achieved. And most especially now, with the COVID crisis, we are seeing that this crisis has had more adverse impact on females compared to males, and it risks destroying the progress made over recent years, because it's been most especially women who've been harsh hit in the labor market. We should say that, well, in Europe, this year is the beginning of the new Commission. It started at the end of last year. So there's a strong interest in the transitions, green transition and digital transition. And quite obviously, this requires, more knowledge and skills, which are green, ecologic, technologic, and scientific, STEM skills. But if you want to have a green and digital transition, quite obviously, well, this is only achievable if this transition is inclusive, i.e., it must be a transition that gives the same opportunities to all citizens in Europe, be it women or men. So, regardless. And the message of this event today is very important because we address girls and women. They have to take up challenges and seize all opportunities that come up, because the Italian situation is not that different, you know, from the European one. As a matter of fact, if we take a look at the European startups, only 16% have been founded or co-founded by women, and in 1,000 graduate women in Italy, only 24 are in the IT and communication sectors, and only 6 are having a career in that sector. Also, as regards vocational training, we are seeing this huge difference, between men and women in specific sectors like men widespread in construction and engineering, and females are more present in healthcare, just to make an example. As a matter of fact, 13% of engineering students are women in Europe and 16% in IT. So, very low, very low. We are so far away right now from equality of men and women in these sectors, and we know that more women graduate compared to men, and this, you know, is an even greater concern, if I may say so, and especially we have to tackle biases and prejudices relating to the so-called professions for males and females, respectively. This year round, we've launched in Europe a gender strategy for the 2020-2024 period, which aims to practical concrete actions to ensure equality in all of the sectors within the EU. And I must say that this strategy is very important for the European institutions, and you know, it's been in the EU treaties since the beginning, since 1957, but we have still a long way to go. We have to work hard. We're not yet done. And talking about the area I'm responsible for, i.e. skills, and if I take a look at an important document that we've adopted this year, the new agenda for skills, I can tell you this much. We have highlighted quite a lot the issue of the so-called STEM professions, which are going to be indispensable for a green and digital transition. And we've also highlighted the importance of STEM for educational training, vocational training and education. And we want, you know, to have a better balance in cui normalmente le ragazze entrano nella formazione professionale e ragazzi. Between the various areas of vocational training for boys and girls. We want to have a better balance in this regard as well. As we know, the enterprises that are more well balanced in terms of men versus women are more productive, you know. So it's about economy, and most especially it's about social justice. I'd like to stop here. Thank you, Dr. GELENG. I'm impressed by the fact that the proportion of women who decide to establish a startup is so low. including elsewhere in Europe, not just here. Less impressed, because I already was aware of the trend, less impressed by the fact that also when it comes to vocational training, the trend is one of construction and welding for men, as opposed to healthcare and well-being, more focused on females. We've seen this trend in our EVTA network. Some of our associates are trying to take targeted actions to encourage women to enter these professions, which are viewed as being more suitable for males, but which is not the case. I mean, they're accessible by women as well. So thank you. Thank you so much for this broad overview of the initiatives being taken by Europe to promote gender equality. And let's now move on to some of the questions we are getting from the audience. You're very active, so many questions. I'm glad. So you can use the event chat to ask questions or make comments. If you're latecomers, be aware that we have a chat on the event page, and if you want to ask questions to our speakers, please feel free. So, let's go back to Dr. GELENG. There's a question that relates Europe, or in any case, it's not focused on Italy. It says, women more than men are judged based upon their private life rather than their professional skills, and they pay the consequences on their job. Is it only an Italian problem? How can we overcome this mindset that is so widespread? Manuela, you have a well-established international experience. What can you tell us on this? Gender inequalities, unfortunately, are a phenomenon that we are seeing across Europe. It's not just gender inequalities, but also inequalities in terms of pay, salary. We are seeing that these inequalities don't go away quickly. Rather, over the last decade, I would say that it's been the other way around. We haven't seen a real improvement. So much so that many studies say that gender equality, if we don't do anything, will come until 2100. I mean, or even later. But what I'm seeing in Europe is that there is a greater awareness, and more than that, I would also say that there's greater willingness to move on and to progress towards real equality. Okay, thank you. Having come thus far, hopefully the person who asked this question through the chat is satisfied with the answer from Manuela. So, thank you once again, Dr. GELENG, and over to Silvia for one more round of questions with the speakers. Thank you, Julia, and I'd like to thank the audience for the active participation. Thank you for all of your questions we are getting. We are seeing them. So many questions. Unfortunately, as you know, in these events, most especially when we are online, time is short. Anyway, we will try and answer as many questions as possible as we move on. So, after this broad overview of the guidance, I'd like to now focus on the practical actions that are being taken outside the world of education or in collaboration with it. Now, once more, Maria Raffaella Caprioglio, here she is. Welcome back, by the way. So, One question for you. How can we overcome this gap at work? On which aspects should we focus as a priority to bring about change? Like I said, we need the collaboration of all. It's fundamental. For employment agencies, gender equality has never been a problem because in terms of contracts and salaries, there's no difference, not at all, from this point of view. The main advantage is that we at Umana want people to understand what choices they can make amongst the proposals they receive. So we push people to choose tasks that maybe they don't dare tackle, like STEM graduates who then don't use these skills at work. At Umana, we accompany, coach, tutor people, both virtually and physically, when they go to work. So we want to explain and engage and involve, and we tell them that they can do whatever they want, and this is important. I take all opportunities to remind one important thing. I mean, how we work. We, employment agencies, receive requests from enterprises in terms of the people they need. So they describe the tasks they need, and then we try and understand the context and, screen the persons to be accompanied to work. And we work on a set of parameters. We have quite obviously men and women, no difference at all. We make no difference. And like I said before, there are so many women, 84.2% of the headcount at Umana are women. And this helps, quite obviously, as you can understand. It helps when we talk about differences. And so, like I said, we accompany many women. True, maybe not all are courageous, in terms of embracing certain tasks. But this is our legacy, and I believe that females should be able to test, experiment many works, many jobs. Some girls accept to take a challenge. They try and go for a task. Maybe at the beginning they're not so convinced, but at least they try. So they have to have the possibility to test, to try. Trials and errors, if you wish. This is useful not just for enterprises, but also for employees. So all of this helps STEM graduates to have access to the labor market. Roughly, we have half men and half women who come to us in terms of the STEM professions. Well, quite obviously, there's a high demand for STEM professions. So once again, we are an important vehicle for this cultural transformation. We as employment agency. And then there is, there's not just one solution. We've heard it. It's a mindset problem, a cultural problem. It takes time. I say it again. And Professor Granata said something very interesting. True. We all have to ask questions because, it's women who discuss about these issues. Why is it that these issues are only discussed among women? Well, it's because we have to be more self-assured, self-confident. We have to say, yes, I can. And, the best way is step by step. We have to kind of put everything together and, little by little we'll make it. Like I said before, events like today's event and many other events in Job Orienta are so important. I took part in events relating to fashion, and I said that the world of fashion is something women really want, but it's not just catwalks, It's not just, the most showy aspects. So we are pushing females to attend the technical high schools, because the technical skills are so important when it comes to the world of fashion. And bear in mind that in this specific period, luckily enough, despite the distress of the fashion industry, we are seeing that in the retail world, many more technical skills are being requested. And this is the set of professions behind catwalks. Catwalks are just the tip of the iceberg, as it were. So also in the fashion industry, we are helping women to embrace these technical jobs. But the goal is very clear. We can do all. We can do it all. This is the goal we have to achieve. We have to be convinced of this. We don't have to always aim for perfection. But I mean, progress is on the way, and I'm sure that young women can make it. I'm a mother, and I'm the mother of a young woman, and they will derive benefits from what we are doing today. I couldn't hear you. Can you hear me now? Yes, I can hear you now. Okay, here I am. I can only completely agree with you. We know that we don't have the magic wand. No one has it. No magic formula. But like the President of the European Commission said, and like we said earlier on, we cannot change everything overnight. It takes time. We have to persevere, and we can make change happen. We know the strong commitment of Umana on this issue, and it's so nice to hear your data, even though the fact that there is this strong presence of females in your organization is very important, and it's very positive in this scenario. Now, let's move on. Having come thus far, we have to, well, first of all, I'm being told that we have so many members in the audience. 1,014 on YouTube. Thank you so much for joining us and for being here, for following us. I invite you once again to ask questions. We are seeing them. We will try and answer as many questions as possible, even though it's very hard because, as I said, we don't have much time and there's so many questions. However, let's move on because, like I said a moment ago, as you know, this event this year round, unfortunately, is online only because we are going through a situation of difficulty due to the pandemic. Talking about this, I want to ask ELENA GRANATA, if I can see her. Here she is. So back to you. In this healthcare emergency, we do need a common joint effort to figure out a school that after COVID is capable of proposing new models to boys and girls alike, and most especially to girls. So I want to understand together with you where we can start from, where we must start from for this change. Right, you said we are going through a moment of difficulty. Well, this is not a moment of difficulty. It's an epoch-making change in our lifestyle systems. COVID, just like climate change, are imposing upon the world a change of direction. And maybe we can't even fully understand it. We all hope that time will pass, there's going to be the vaccine, and we go back to the past life. No way, we are no longer going to have the way of the past. It's a disruption. The world is going to be disrupted. It's a drama, but for girls, it's an extraordinary opportunity in terms of commitment. Just think of the new generations and especially females and their focus on climate change, their sensitivity to ecology, the environment, and Greta was the best for this vision of the world. Remember that she was young, she was a student. Maybe we remember too little the imprinting that came from her for new generations, and the planet has started to move in a different direction thanks to her compared to the past. So there is renewed focus in the new generation for some issues. Is a precious opportunity. We couldn't miss out on it. And then, you know, we're no longer using the school facilities. Now we are at the trial of the school system. This is due to COVID, but somehow we've laid bare all of the limitations of a school made based upon competencies that are imposed from the teacher to the student. Today we understand that the skills needed in this world are not in the hands of the teachers. I enter the class, I talk about ecology, but I understand that my students, boys and girls, in a moment will know much more than I do about this field that is completely inexplored. So if we imagine that classrooms and schools are a place to co-produce the knowledge necessary for this present time, you can understand that the school will be radically different. It will use and exploit and enhance the value of the intelligences of the new generations. And at the university, we are forced to do this on frontier themes. I'm thinking of ecology, the environment, urban planning, and the economic themes. These are all themes on which we can start co-produce competencies, skills, not locally, but for the whole planet together with our students. So what about learning, the learning path? You know, it's a mutual exchange between teachers and students. So what about classrooms and learning if we leverage on innovation and creativity of the new generations? Now then, this prefigures the fact that in females we have to develop their entrepreneurial skills. We have to enhance the value of their being unique and so good as entrepreneurs. We have to boost their contribution to the classroom. I've been doing this in my classrooms where lectures are less of a lecture. I don't propose. It's something that comes, you know, at the same time together with the 50 students who stay with me for a semester. So this makes me hopeful because we have an extraordinary opportunity, even though this is a catastrophe. I mean, it is a catastrophe. We're going through an economic, ecological, and social catastrophe. However, girls can play a new role in those very professions in which there's no competition from males. Why don't we culturally invest in environmental and climate change and AI? I mean, these are the themes which are still frontiers in which we can engage more girls compared to boys, not because boys are not necessary, quite obviously. We dream of the time when there will be gender equality. But right now, we can exploit this sensitivity, which I see in the new generations. Increasingly more, I have classrooms that are born environmentally friendly. The young are not digital native, they are environmentally friendly native because their mindset allows them to connect skills, put knowledge together, connect, because they are the generation that was born digital. But what can we do with all of this creativity? What can we do with their, you know, ability to produce knowledge if our classroom is still stiff, where we have to impose the curricula upon our students? So I'd like to bring home these 2 points. The world is changing, and in this catastrophe, we can find the ability to regenerate our worlds. And second, the sensitivity that females are showing, most especially for taking care of the planet, will be the theme on which professions will be developed. You know, tasks and competences and skills and abilities will hinge on this. So I think that tomorrow we can start engaging our girls in this. Thank you so much, Professor. I want to thank you, and I want to equally thank all of our speakers, because, you know, we started this event by telling disappointing data, and when we decided to hold this event on this topic, you know, initially it didn't seem to be a rosy moment to do that. But all of this food for thought and insights and information we are receiving from you somehow are making us hopeful. It's as if we were starting to see the light at the end of the tunnel and understanding that it is possible, it's doable, it's no utopia. So thank you so much. I always keep my promises. So, since we are getting so many questions, I'd like to give the floor back to Giulia, who is somehow selecting some of your questions so that we can try and answer. So, over to you, Giulia. Thank you, Silvia. We are getting so many questions. Amazing. I have one for Dr. Caprioglio. We spend much time in talking about discrimination from men, and this is undoubtable. But we are less and less focused on how some powerful women abuse their power on those who are inferior, but they speak about emancipation. So what's your take on this comment that we got from the audience, and according to you, which are the strategies we can adopt daily in our daily life to forestall this? I'm politically incorrect. I don't agree with this statement, and this is because, there are too few of us, so we want to protect ourselves. I often remember that when I started to work, I was the third executive in Confindustria as a female, and they had to hire a secretary for me because no one wanted to be the secretary of a woman, you know. That's an experience that was so useful in my life. I'm not seeing this in our working environment. But I can imagine that there can be some conflicts, and that this as well may not be helpful when it comes to helping women grow. You know, we're in an ecosystem of men and women, and I always say that we have to focus on people first. I've never been a feminist. I've always been a woman who's worked. I never thought I had to focus on differences. Never thought of that. And so what can we do? I don't have the crystal ball, but I can tell you this much. Let us think normally, reason normally. Don't waste energy in trying to understand if we do have room. Take your room, take your space. If there are differences, let's talk about them, and let us build a good alliance between men and women. It's always the best mix. I've worked for years with men only. I've been working with women as well for the last 22 years, and this is my thought. Let us work together. There are good people among males and females. It's not a problem. Let us not build ghettos for us. This is the risk we run each and every day. Thank you so much. So let us bust the myth that we are our constraint, and let us join forces to tackle the future. So let's move on with one more question from the audience. Kamala Harris, in her first speech as Vice President-elect of the US, said, I may be the first woman in this position, but I won't be the last one. Every girl who's watching me is seeing a country of possibilities. How is it important to rely on positive examples, and what does Italy need to become a country that allows women to be successful? Professor Granata, over to you. Oh, it's a long way to go, because we are used to having panels and conferences entirely represented by males. We have on TV males when it comes to economy and important issues. And this is impactful on, mainstream thoughts. It is so rare to have female executives involved. There are so many, but they are underrepresented, and this is a problem. This is an issue. We have to fix it. We have to come up with very practical solutions. People say it's not important to have women. What matters is that we have smart people. Okay, but if they're not present, they don't speak. And for every woman who doesn't speak, the planet loses a female thought. So the problem is that more often than not, we allow women to be caring, loving, take care of the world and be benevolent, but we don't use their intelligence, which means that we have to work out thoughts, strategies and visions. This is what we have to protect in women, their thoughts. And so show it and give more and more room in public debates to women's thoughts. That's the venue where intelligences and viewpoints are measured. But if the viewpoints are always those of men, this is to the detriment of women. I very much agreed with the previous question. At times, women behave as men, meaning that they adopt those behaviors and conducts which are very penalizing vis-a-vis younger women. They're penalizing for women. At times, we adopt this male model, but it's not a male model because there are very loving and caring and benevolent males. So it's a stereotype at the end of the day. Care is part of humans, males and females alike, and intelligence is, under the remit of females and males. It's banal, it's trivial, it's a platitude, but it's true. True. As a matter of fact, women, since they are so good at managing their lives in parallel, at work and at home, they show that they have these abilities, skills. They are skills in terms of strategy and decision making, and they should be leveraged, capitalized on, and put to the service of society as a whole. Absolutely, you're absolutely right. And women more often than not take a step back when they know that they're not perfectly prepared on a theme, perfectly adequate for a role. Instead, we should learn from men. You can also dare do something when you're not perfect, and I've learned throughout my career, I've learned so much from my colleagues, male colleagues. At times you have to take the floor even though you're not perfect. You have to step in the debate even though you're not number one. We are so reluctant because more often than not we prefer to give the floor to someone else because we believe that someone else is better than we are. And this is something we have to work on, more self-assurance, self-confidence. It's better to do something than to just be perfect. Thank you. So back to Silvia to move on with our round of questions. Thank you, Giulia. Thank you so much. I'd like to also thank all of you for all of your questions and for all your food for thought and insights. Starting from this, I would like to go back to Professor Santurri. Today, how shall I say, women are the protagonists of this event. So I want to know one thing from you. What do these women need? How can we break this occupational segregation? I'd like to go back to what Elena Granata said. I really loved her words. The idea of being not perfect, not fully adequate, is clear based upon data. Data shows, for example, that amongst the engineering students, the few women who are present in those courses had had much higher scores in the final exam at high school. Instead, men, even though they've had low scores at the final exam of the high school, they don't care and they go for it. So it's, lack of self-confidence, of self-assurance, If you want to be so bold to make such a choice, you have to be top performer. Instead, for boys, this doesn't apply. So going back to what Elena Granata said, we have to be more self-confident, self-assured. We have to be aware of the fact that even though we are not perfect, we can have excellent results. What's for sure is that there's one more thing that is important according to me. We have to give a positive imprinting to our little girls. I started with, the books for little boys and girls. We have to start at the beginning. If at the primary school girls have a negative imprinting vis-a-vis STEM disciplines, or if there's a bias that girls are not as good as boys in these disciplines, we are not helping them. And this is interesting. Maybe we should include males in the world of training and education, if they are more interested in these aspects, like in primary schools or high schools. In the first 3 years in Italy, there we have female teachers. This could give a different imprinting to our little girls. But let us now focus on those females who embraced STEM disciplines and would like to find a STEM profession, a STEM job. So, if we can put up on screen one slide, I would like to show you the findings of a survey that was carried out by Kelly Service in several European countries. From this slide, you can see that in point of fact, one of the things that can attract women to STEM professions is the possibility to, have a nice work-life balance. Not work-family balance, but work-life balance more in general. And in Italy, 70% of women say that this is important. I would be curious to see if it's the same for men as well. But, these are questions for women only. So this could be interesting, meaning we should show that STEM professions can offer a good work-life balance and not the other way around. Bear with me for a moment. This is the slide I was looking for. So, what actions should we take to do this? Well, first of all, flexibility in the organization. 66% of women say that this could be helpful. And like Elena said, the pandemic could be a huge opportunity, The fact of having to organize work differently maybe destroys the stereotype that there can only be one type of organization that is very stiff, like it's been the case up until now. I mean, we can show that we can work from home, balancing work and life, in focusing on achievements, results, rather than working hours. And in this, women are so good. We are capable of doing that. So, an important aspect is this one. And the other aspect is that 1/3 of women are allocated to wellness. And, we also need policies that promote an amicable, positive working environment. Women focus on relations as well, and they believe that STEM environments are not so amicable, so friendly. Finally, we asked women respondents, would you be willing to give up a portion of your salary So would you be willing to give up a portion of your salary to have something else in exchange? And over 1/3 of women said yes, flexibility, or remote work, or more holidays. So this is the idea, you know. Salary does matter, but other aspects as well, they do matter as well. They're equally important in order for women to be able to have more peace of mind when embracing STEM professions. I don't know if I answered your question. Thank you so much, Professor. I think that yes, you did. You did answer my question. I must say that figures at times speak more than words. You know, the data you've given to us is very, very significant and meaningful. Now, I'd love to talk to our counselor who's here with us and whom we haven't introduced to you yet. Here she is. Good morning and welcome. You're muted. Good morning to all of you. Apologies, but this morning I had a meeting with the employment minister. She's a woman, a very important woman. Apologies, but I listened to many interesting questions and presentations, and this helped me when I talked to the ministry. Thank you so much for joining us. So, you are our counselor and you've dealt for several years with equal opportunities. So, closeness to people and direct engagement with local enterprises and the centers where boys and girls are trained, is it helpful to counter stereotypes, gender stereotypes and biases? And according to you, how can we reverse the negative trend that we are faced up with? Where can we start to change all of this? Well, we should start from a cultural approach and look. We're really trying to do this today with this seminar, with this event that is very in-depth. You know, here we don't want to just be feminist. We're tired of that. We want to tackle themes, we enhance the pluses, we try and come up with the criticalities and try and fix them. And I believe that the cultural approach is the real challenge we have to take up. You know, in this beautiful edition of Job that is so rich, even though I want an in-person meeting and hopefully we can soon go back to embrace ourselves and hug ourselves. It's our nature. I mean, the nature of mankind, not just women or men. We have to go back hugging ourselves and we have to be physically present. And when I say so, we have to be present. However, this online edition of Job is helpful. You know, there have been several moments in which we've talked about STEM. We talked about STEM. We talked to several speakers. And, you know, we've had the day against violence against women. So we've been, you know, truthful, we've been sincere, and we have understood, like one of the speakers said, that if the world or our organizations or the world of employment, of teachers and politicians, if there are no women, these worlds are poorer because it's a balance. If there is no such balance, it's a problem, it's an issue. And this applies to the world of vocational training as well. I love to take part in the event promoted by ENAIP because through their events we get together, you know, usually we were sitting around the table with the schools of vocational training which you know, previously used to be very male oriented. I'm not just talking about mechanical technologies, but also for chefs. Today, we have many more females who attend technical vocational schools. ENAIP has always allowed us to have good chats and discuss goals and targets. So we have to all be committed to the STEM disciplines. We have to find a balance. So many more females, we have to invest on this, and my department has invested a lot in these in terms of courses for females. And I'm talking about courses of maths, physics, and sciences. And previously they were male-oriented, and there were few females. But I also like what you said about being courageous. We are perfectionists, we women, and I say so because I know Miss Caprioglio, I know she's a perfectionist. But in general, women, when they have roles of responsibility, they tend to be perfectionist, painstakingly so at times. Instead, we have to be courageous, be brave, go for it. Don't think that we have to suffer, you have to take up challenges. And lastly, when we deal with the role of women in society, I'd like to tell all of our youngsters that the theme of life and maternity is something we have to tackle as a system, but it's a cultural problem. That is why I'm hinting at this. It's the most beautiful thing in the world. Instead, we see it as a problem, as an issue, as an impediment to work. We see it as something like, you're a woman, if you want to be successful, you have to be a career woman without constraints, without limitations. Yesterday, in one of these seminars, we talked about 700 years of Dante, and in Paradise, freedom is given through a woman, Beatrice. So we talked about bonds and freedom. Are we sure that freedom is absolute, unconstrained? No, no way. It's not in our nature, neither for men nor for women. So I believe that this way of working is something that digs deeper down, to the roots of our culture. And it's all about the cultural goals we have to set in order to improve, if possible, this world. Okay, thank you so much for your speech. I completely agree with you. And we all know the commitment you've undertaken on this theme. We've seen it in practice, in your facts. And I'm very impressed by this. And I'm impressed because, in point of fact, you talk about something that we all know, but usually it's not something that is highlighted. Like we're afraid of views, opinions, and judgments. We shouldn't suffer from it, we as women. And this is something on which each of us, I believe, ought to work. Me, for one. I often suffer from this. I'm afraid of what the others may think of me. So thank you so much for saying so. Now, the floor goes back to Giulia, who always has some questions for us from our audience. Thank you, Silvia. I have one for Councillor Donazzan. A question from across the Alps. Good morning from France. Thank you for your interesting contributions. I'd like to ask the Councillor which stakeholders and institutions can be engaged and involved to promote more gender equality in employment and in setting salaries, considering that the pandemic is hitting hard women in employment. How can institutions at all levels, from regions to Europe, support safer and higher qualified jobs for women? Apologies for my translation, says Silvia. Oh, good question. I'd like to thank all of those who are following from abroad. We invite you to Italy. Come to Italy. We are an extraordinarily beautiful land. So, yes, it's all about welcoming, meaning that this crisis is so harsh. And so enterprises start cherry-picking employees, and women, unfortunately, are penalized more than others. And also when it comes to finding a job, regardless of crisis and COVID, women are viewed as being less reliable. And guess why? Well, because more often than not, it's all about costs and benefits. So, what will be the best of possible worlds? Well, real work-life balance and services for female life. One of the speakers said that female life is so complex, so many bonds and things to do. So it's important to have a good work-life balance and services to do so. We have to support this. And Italy has its own long-lasting public welfare. We have to have more private welfare. And it's all about bargaining, when a company has to review its contracts, and this applies to Europe. I mean, mostly it's between the bargaining parties. And so what's welfare? At times it's the shopping bag or the voucher for sports, at times voucher for education. But why don't we think of the needs and requirements of women and mothers specifically? And the second thing is that when it comes to recruiting employees, more often than not, they say, how old is the woman? Is she married? Are there children? I mean, this is viewed as being negative instead of being viewed as being positive. So motherhood is a cost. Oh, terrible. No way. It's an investment for the community. Women are bringers of life. So when it comes to services for maternity, we have to work on it. And Europe is seeing that the birth rate is so low. So if it wants to be sustainable, it needs active women, mothers, and Europe has to support women and mothers. We've wasted so much money over time, so now it's high time to spend this money for women and mothers. With the European funds, our region, the Veneto region, most especially during the COVID pandemic, we've had 2 tenders for this, to help women not be excluded from the labor market. Thank you. I fully agree with these words. I very much agree on putting together private and public welfare, because more often than not, we cannot say that public welfare is all. We have to take action with private entities so that women are really enabled to develop their potential. Let us now instead talk about STEM and the future. We are about to close this event, and after talking about practical cases, now we want to think of some good examples, good cases, good practices that can be a source of inspiration and we can capitalize on and leverage on for the future. So, back to our international speaker, who is connected from Brussels like me. So, Dr. GELENG, welcome back. Can you make some examples of good European practices about inclusion and female development in the STEM sector? Well, first of all, an event like this is so important to raise the awareness. We in Europe are doing the same. We have the Vocational Training Week, which is an event that raises awareness on a number of topics. It was held a couple of weeks ago, and one of the aspects that we always tackle is that of the perception that has to be changed. We have to get rid of stereotypes when it comes to education, training, and professions, because some are viewed as being for males and other for females. No way. Time to get rid of this. We talked about role models. And I think on your website, there is a role model that we presented during our professional or vocational training week by Talia Magidi, who is an entrepreneur, graduated in IT, and that in IT created the Community Donne 4.0 group. And she also promotes the 4.0 skills in the young adults, and most especially in women as role models. We need female role models, and for every European country there is an ambassador, male or female, in terms of vocational training, because it's important to bring across this message about STEM professions and education. And this year, in the week of vocational training, we rightfully focused on STEM professions. One other European best practice is the U-STEM Coalition. It's a European network to build a better STEM education, but not just in economic terms, but also in terms of equality, gender equality. Thank you. Thank you, Dr. GELENG. The video mentioned by you is available on our vetrina, shop window literally. Take a look at it, check it out. It's very important. I've seen the closing ceremony of their week when they projected the video, and to be honest, it was so inspirational. So after our event, take your time before lunch and watch the video. Now, back to Silvia for the last round of questions, and then I'll come back for the closing address. Okay, thank you, Giulia. I would like to close this panel because we are running short of time. So I'd like to close with one last question to the counselor. Can you talk about one best practice, women for women? As a woman and a decision maker, what is your good practice to support women and workers, women workers and professionals? It's about system. I'm a decision maker. I deal with employment, so I'm not almighty. I cannot do it all alone. The first good practice is what happened in Veneto as regards women. The Veneto of women, and this is the name of our project. A widespread local network of services of women for women, with many stakeholders who've been engaged in building this network, with 22 events, local events, company visits, smart working before COVID, so work-life balance. And this has become a model, and it's generating extremely beneficial effects, because women try and fix their problems alone, on their own. No way, no way. You need a network of services. And secondly, what do I do as a woman? Because I'm a counselor for education, training, and employment. You know what the difference is between female thought and male thought is that we are concise but take account of complexity. Instead, men are goal-focused and they are very partial, biased. So instead, I, as a decision maker, want something more organic when I make decisions. Thank you for this last comment. In talking about best practices and talking about good examples, now, like I said at the beginning, I'd like to convey to you the thoughts of Lela Golfo, the president of the Belisario Foundation. I don't know how many of you know the foundation. It has always focused on the talents of women, and this year we want to congratulate on them because some months ago the Golfo Mosca law was adopted, and Lella Golfo was the first signatory of this law, act of law. And it brought about a huge change. It's been so impactful. And since the entering into effect of this, the average age of the board members of listed company has gone down a lot. And now we have more graduates and women with master graduation. So this has had quite an impact on women in employment. So congrats on that. Quite an achievement. So now let's watch this video. Good morning, rather good afternoon, and thank you for having me here. Your theme is very important. It's a theme that is dear to me. With the Marisa Belisario Foundation, we've been dealing with it for over 30 years since the term STEM was not yet there. Marisa Belisario was, a white fly in the world of TLC, and since then she encouraged young girls to study STEM disciplines. And that is why, since the beginning, we've been working on this. In 1999, we found only one professional in Palermo with a top score in electronic engineering. Today, luckily, there are many more, even though not enough. Out of 100 girls enrolled at the university, only 18 go for STEM disciplines. On the positive side, we can say that in any case, there is more propensity from southern female students to choose STEM disciplines. As a matter of fact, 19.2% is against 17.7% of the national average and 16% of the European average. This is the data set. One 2018 survey carried out by the Politecnico University of Milan concerning gender balance in 2019 pointed out that STEM disciplines saw almost 17,000 female graduates against 26,000 males. And as regards master graduations, 11,400 females against 17,623 males, for a total of 28,304 males against 43,825 females. However, 15 years ago, there were 3,098 females. Today, we have 16,848. Also, the scores at the end of the university are higher for females, and they don't drop out as much as males. In general, considering the proportion of females out of the total students enrolled, Italy ranks third in Europe for STEM disciplines, with 36% of females enrolled in STEM disciplines against a European average of 32%, despite the bias that keeps young women away from engineering, mathematics, and physics faculties. barring them from having access to the jobs of the future. A report of some days ago calculated that because of the pandemic, by the end of the year, 1.1 million female students between 15 and 29 years of age risk being needs an EET. So, neither studying nor working. And one female in four is already trapped in this situation. Instead, we need competencies, skills, and insights from women. Women, like men, have to contribute towards the building of the future of mankind. Like Marisa Bellisario said, equal opportunities means equal merits. The future of Italy and of the planet will very much depend upon the contribution of women. Luckily, on this theme, we have something in the agenda of institutions, and many initiatives are being taken, like for example, during the summer, and there is the International Day of Women in Science, or the STEM month, or women students want to matter, and so on and so forth. In the task force Women for a New Renaissance, organized by Minister Bonetti, we have a whole chapter that is dedicated to STEM disciplines. And we've made several proposals and major suggestions that will be worked on by the Department for Equal Opportunities. This theme is crucial, and Italy, Europe, and the whole world are called upon to invest energies and resources to fix this alarming issue, most especially during the pandemic that hits hard, and most especially women. Thank you for your attention, and I wish you all the best. Okay, thank you, Ms. Lella Golfo, even though you're not here today with us today. So, these are the best closing words, i.e. we always have to remember the words of Marisa Bellisario, whom you have quoted. Equal opportunities is equal merits. Always remember this. These words should stay with us always. So, we've come to the conclusion of this event. I'd like to thank you so much, each and every one of you, for your comments and insights and questions. Unfortunately, so many, we've not been able to answer all of them, but we'll do all that is possible later on to try and answer them. Prior to saying goodbye, I'd like to ask our speakers to make us a gift, just one word as a gift. We've received so much food for thought today, talking about this topic, the topic of STEM and equality and gender equality and technology and lots more. So we ask you a gift. Please donate to us one of your words that we can carry with us to remember how important it is that all citizens and experts, young and adult alike, are protagonists to put change in place. So, kindly, in a nutshell, in just some seconds, write a word preceded by a hashtag, because today we are social oriented. We want to launch several hashtags. I have mine ready. I mean, NIPNet and EVTA word is ready. Guess what? Stay STEM, say women. And then maternity, culture, unique, audacity, and united in diversity. So, Councillor DONAZZAN. Maternity. Why? 10 seconds, not more than that. Why? Because if we want to change the world, we want women to be more aware that they have to give new life. Thank you, Manuela Gelen. Can you read your word? United in diversity. This is the motto of the European Union, but I believe that we can find force and power in diversity. Thank you. Elena, Granata? Unique, like women, like their words and thoughts. If unsaid, no one else will say them for women. Professor Santurri? Audacity, because audacity is that courage that allows us to be bold and go against biases and make free and motivated choices. And I conclude with Maria Raffaella Caprioglio. Yes, I said culture. Culture because this morning we've heard that it's a cultural evolution, the one that we need. So this allows women to set a foothold in all professions. Thank you. I thank you, all of you, very much for staying with us today. I'd like to thank all of the persons from across Italy and Europe for staying with us. And I'd like to thank Giulia for supporting me and staying with us from Brussels. And what else? I wish you all a great day, and stay STEM, say women. Thank you all. Have a great day, you all.
Grazie.